Zebra Products is the UK's leading distributor of premium equestrian brands catering for horse and rider. From Veridus, Amerigo, Sprenger, Akeep, Uvex and many more leading brands, Zebra's impressive portfolio includes clothing, saddles and accessories, boots for horse and rider, care products, horse rugs and helmets. Head to zebraproducts.co.uk to see where you can purchase their products from, which will help you stay ahead of the herd. When it comes to incorporating the latest technology, performance fabrics and innovative design, Bucas rugs are the choice of professional riders and horse owners from all over the world. From the Shamrock Cooler range, travel and stable rugs through to the power turnout rugs, travel boots and accessories, Bucas is a name synonymous with outstanding quality. With all of their products developed with the well-being of horses at the forefront, together with time-saving technology for the owners, Bucas pride themselves in ensuring that your horse always wears the very best. It really is the intelligent choice, and you can purchase the range through Zebra Products.
Oh God, it's so exciting. Happy Hail Bob Day.
It is a happy Hail Bob Day.
Hello, the Curse of Dam.
It's the best finishing score we've seen at 5-star level.
That was our elo coming into the competition.
Eventing Manager is back.
Best show that we have, Alphabetti Spaghetti.
Looking forward to seeing quality horses.
Still a great day for Ireland.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
I mean, you're a bit of an eventing geek just like us.
And it's time to get on with the show. Welcome to the Echo Ratings Eventing podcast. And listeners, it is a brand new episode of The Zebra Show. And this one is very kindly supported by Bucas, and we have one of their riders on the show, but it is the reigning, the brand newly crowned European champion, none other than Nicola Wilson. Nicola, good to have you with us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. I don't think I've spoken to you since Avanche. So I saw you at Blenheim pre kind of Europeans madness. Yes. And all of the dreams were still going and, you know, the nerves were there. I think you were driving off actually to travel over to Avanche at the end of Blenheim, having had a very successful weekend as well, which we'll talk about. But first of all, what has the last couple of months been like? Because it's a big couple of months. Has it sunk in yet?
Oh gosh, I don't think it ever will. But it was just fantastic couple of months, and Avanche and Blenheim and Buccalo and other events. You know, it was just amazing, really, how it all came together. And a couple of years ago, being injured with my neck, and my owners staying so loyal to me. You know, it was just a lovely reward for my team and my owners and everybody that's stayed loyal to me. You know, it's a massive reward and a massive thank you to them when things go as well as they did do this year. So I couldn't be more delighted, relieved, and happy, and feel very lucky.
It was I think it's your 8th senior championship appearance. Did this one feel any different to previous championships, bearing in mind the madness of the last couple of years and you coming back from injury?
It's fantastic and such an honour to be part of a team. And I love being part of a team. I'm much more of a team person than I am an individual. It's just lovely to be part of a squad and sort of train together at the end and travel out together and have that whole sort of camaraderie. And it was no different this time in Switzerland in Avanche, and a fantastic group of girls. We all got on really, really well, and it was just a lovely team spirit from the outset. And you know, everybody went there. All the horses and riders, were in fantastic form, and any one of them could have done and did do extremely well. So it was an exciting week that we were all looking forward to, and going to grab with both hands and do as well as we possibly could.
Well, grab it with both hands. You absolutely did. Just let's rewind slightly, because you touched upon your injury there. For anybody that isn't familiar with what happened, just fill us in, because it was a fairly major fall. You had a good spell of time on the sidelines, and it's been a remarkable recovery for you to get back, that I feel we haven't quite appreciated just what has gone into making that possible.
Well, I was very fortunate, really, that the fall was, well, I've appear to have got away with it, but I was a young horse competing in Belgium, and we had a parting of company, and I in the water, and I sort of was spat out at speed, and sort of corkscrewed into the ground, and I wasn't knocked out, but I knew straight away that something wasn't right in my neck. Anyway, I had multiple fractures to C1, 2, 3, and 7, I remember in the hospital them sort of saying that it was unstable and I wasn't to move, and everybody, my owners and my husband Alistair, were with me, and the concern was awful. It was an awful time, but all I kept saying and to them and thinking was, I'm fine, I'm absolutely fine, I can feel everything, I can move everything, I'm really, really lucky, and that I have been, yes, I had 6 months out of competing, and it was a lot of work went in from myself and also everybody around me. The squad, the world class program, the physio, Ash Wallace, Pippa Bennett, and my home physio. There was we did a lot of work getting stronger again, and using that time and then the winter months to try and get back on track, and then of course just as we were starting to get going again at the beginning of that spring, and the horses were feeling great, and I did a couple of competitions, and it felt amazing to be back competing again, and amazing to be riding cross country, because up until that point you never really know. You can kid yourself that you're going to be fine, but mentally you never quite know until you actually do it how you actually are. And I had that sheer exhilaration when I rode my first horse around the cross country course at Osby, and it was all there as much as it always had been. So it was very exciting. And then of course COVID hit, and we had more time off competing, and I think in a way that helped me, because I'd sort of been competing, knew that the love and passion and drive for the sport was still there, and I had some fantastic horses and excited owners around me, and a super home team. And I think the times of lockdown gave me more time to, work on my own fitness, get stronger, and really build on my fitness, so that we could come back when we were out of lockdown, hopefully with me hitting the ground running, and that I feel helped my campaign tremendously.
It's interesting you say that, and it was actually something that I was thinking as you were talking about, having time on the sidelines. Event riders, sometimes it can feel like a bit of a hamster wheel, can't it? You go from one event to the next event, and looking for the next thing, onto the next horse, and it can be very, very intense. That actually having that time away and being able to kind of regroup and say, okay, these are the marginal gains that I can make, this is the plan that I can refine, actually can be really, really beneficial. So it's fascinating to hear that not only in your recovery, but actually then once you realised that the love for the sport and everything was very much still there, that you could kind of even work on that even more during sort of the early months of being, I guess, COVID bound to when we were all at home and eventing wasn't really happening, and able then to hit the ground running fully. Coming into this year, you obviously had a really, really nice team of young horses at the end of 2020. What was your aim coming into 2021? Did you think, a year of an Olympics, a year of a European Championship, that one of those might be an option, or were you looking at another picture at the very, very start of the season?
Well, at the sort of end of the year before and the beginning of this year, Bulana was, still my top horse, and I'd sort of hoped that if we could, pull out a really good result at, say, badminton or something like that, then perhaps we could propel ourselves a little bit higher up the possibility of going to Tokyo. So that was very much my drive and hopes, really. And I knew that JL Dublin, has always been a super horse. He's always felt a horse that has had so much ability and always a competitive horse at every level that he's been at since we've had him as a 4-year-old. But he just didn't quite sort of feel as if he'd quite matured into the horse that would be an Olympic or a European horse. And then as the winter training sort of went very well, and then he came out in the spring and he won his first competition, and he was just a very mature horse. He'd sort of matured over the winter and had come out, instead of wanting to be at the bar with his mates drinking beer, he felt as if he wanted to, come out and show off and show how good he was, and perhaps be drinking champagne. And that is very much sort of how he developed over the winter and came out the horse that he has been all year. So then, of course, he leapfrogged over Bulana in being a reserve for Tokyo, and then going to the Europeans. So it's lovely how those younger horses, you can't put a time scale on when you feel they're going to be a top class horse, but he always had the making, and he just came of age over the winter months in readiness for this year.
I love the beer and champagne analogy. That's brilliant. He ran really well at Aston Lewells earlier on this year in a very, very hot section to finish on his dressage score, and was very, very solid there to go to his second long format 4-star. He'd run very well at Burnham Market the previous year for a top 10 finish, but his second 4-star long at Bicton, I think it would be fair to say Bicton 4-star long was a different kettle of fish. How impressed were you with his performance in all 3 phases there that weekend?
Enormously. He felt as if he was improving weekly on the flat. We've worked for many, many years with Ian Woodhead, and he was on a steep incline with how he was developing and getting stronger. He was just so keen to do it, and he wanted to work, and he wanted to, he really entered into it, and he was just improving at a great rate of knots. And he set off with a super test. He'd been brilliant all week. He worked very well. He didn't need a great deal of work because he just felt as if he was on top of it. And he went in and shone in the dressage. And as you said, Bicton was an incredibly difficult challenge. The hills, the actual stamina test, and also the course was very difficult cross country. And although I had every confidence in his ability to jump the jumps and answer the questions, he had never been tested over that distance, and he'd never been tested over that terrain. And he wouldn't be a horse that had a lot of thoroughbred. And although we did our best to get him as fit as possible, you just don't know until they're put to the test whether he has it in him or not. And I was so impressed at how well he started, and also how well he stayed up the hills, and he finished. He finished full of running. He cruised inside the time, and I was just so excited to have that feeling that and he'd more than ticked the box in my mind that yes, this horse really can gallop, and yes, he really can stay the distance. So it was a very exciting moment, not only for him to go so well, but to think that then you've got a horse for the future that perhaps will be able to go on and do more.
How quick was the turnaround then to going into quarantine for Tokyo? Because Bicton, all eyes were on Bicton for the final British trial, and there was the very, very hotly contested 4-star short as well. So what was the sort of speed at which it came back that actually you would be going into quarantine? Because I think I'm right in saying that he would have been number 7 on the list. So did it feel perhaps unlikely that actually Tokyo was a possibility? How was that feeling?
Oh, I never felt that Dublin would be going to the Olympics. It was just an honour to be part of that squad. The riders that went to Tokyo were more than deserved. They're slots. They'd been amazing for the last couple of years, and it was just lovely for Dublin and I to be involved and see their final preparation before going, and be as supportive as we possibly could in their final days before their flight out there to fabulousness, which they were amazing, and we're all very, very proud of them. But to have that extra training for Dublin and I, and also for Ruth Asquith, who's my head girl, for her to be involved and see, she's never been to an Olympics, and for her to see the sort of the training and the support and be involved in that was also lovely for her too. And we used it with Dublin to try and maximise on that sort of one-to-one training in preparation for hopefully the Europeans, which I felt was for this year for Dublin a more realistic aim and goal for him.
Obviously, there was absolutely no doubting how competitive you are and how competitive your team are in terms of top level eventing. The team, you've already said, is what it's all about for you. Was being in that environment really motivational for you? Those kind of few weeks that actually you kind of really felt like there were a lot of different pieces of the puzzle coming together, building towards something quite special for you in the next few months?
Yes, I think so, because Dublin still felt, he had had his result at Bicton, that was amazing, and then he had a little bit of a holiday, and then we started to build with sort of Hartbury and the Europeans in mind, and being in the quarantine was fantastic opportunity to continue his development and for him to experience different environments, and it was I felt part of a very important part of his education and training and preparation for, as you say, for the next few months that were to come.
And going into, obviously, towards Avanche, to the European Championships, he went to Hartbury for his final big prep run, which he duly won. Looked very, very impressive in all three phases. And I would say a breakthrough in the first phase there. He scored the best test of his career at that point, which was a 23.9. How pleased were you to have got Hartbury done, dusted, and thought, phew, right, okay, now we can look towards the Europeans?
Well, after Bicton, then, as I said, he had his holiday, and then I wanted him to have a steady run at Berghem in the short 3-star. I didn't want him to sort of think that every time he went on the competition field that he was able to run quickly and wild, and I wanted him to have just that little bit of discipline and a little bit of a no pressure competition, because the build up in the spring had been quite high pressure every competition, because you're trying to prove your worthiness and trying to fight for your space on a team, and prove. So it's all about results. So he'd sort of had increasing amount of pressure in the spring and the build up to Bicton. So after his break, I desperately wanted him to have a nice break to unwind and think about what he'd done and his achievements, and then the nice steady run at Berghem, because I knew full well that a couple of weeks, 3 weeks later, was Hartbury, and I wanted to put in the best performance that we could to try and nail our position on the team, our place on the team. So we actually only ended up taking Dublin to Hartbury with one goal, and that goal was to do as well as possible and try and win the competition. And that he thankfully did.
He absolutely did. He was brilliant.
It would have been a very, very long journey home to Yorkshire.
It would have been. What was the feeling like building up to the Europeans? Because obviously massive, you say, the pressure going into Tokyo, and we've spoken to various people on this podcast before around kind of the build up and how almost every performance and every competition was the competition. That there were fewer opportunities for a steady run here and there. And then again, going into Europeans, it was an incredibly, incredibly strong British team. There would have been a number of combinations left at home that actually could have felt that they could have been to an Olympics or a Europeans as well. So how did it feel within the British camp in terms of those that sort of had got the golden tickets as such? Did you feel any additional pressure than you would normally going into a major championships?
No, I think you're very appreciative that you have been given the nod, so to speak, and you have a responsibility to perform to the best of your ability, and that we're all acutely aware of. But I think it's also important, and every rider there involved is very experienced and have been competing at this level for a number of years, and are well sort of trained or practiced in trying to put aside the pressures that are upon you, and because that's not going to help your performance. And at the end of the day, we need to do as well as possible. So we have to try and sort of stay in our own bubble, I suppose, and focus on what we can control and ignore what we can't control, and get on and do the best job possible.
And what about your performance there? We'll start with the dressage, because it was an international personal best for you and for the horse. 20.9 in the first race. I remember watching his test just thinking, this is something really special. And he grew very much to the occasion, and he absolutely delivered. Did you expect or did you feel that test was in him bubbling away? Obviously he's got bigger and stronger, and you sort of say, you felt the breakthroughs coming, but did you ever dream that actually it was going to be a 20.9 at the Europeans?
I didn't really think about it, to be honest. I didn't put a figure on it. As you said earlier about his Hartbury test, I felt that his Hartbury test was considerably better than his Bicton test. He was a lot stronger. He was more flamboyant in his movement. He was more established. He carried himself better. And I was remembered to be absolutely delighted with his Hartbury performance. And then from there, he kept on improving week after week. He kept on getting stronger and better and more eloquent, I suppose, in his way of, or elegant in his way of going. He felt great at the beginning of the week when we arrived. His brain and his mind was very, very focused. I was sort of struck at how focused he was on the job in hand. He knew why he was there, and he wanted to do as well as I wanted to do. And it was a really touching feeling, really, when you know that your partner is wanting the same as you. And he went in there, and he was. I felt, fabulous. He was with me. He was rideable. He was elegant, and I just felt that movement after movement, he felt super. He nailed it, and I remember halting doing the final halt, which I felt he did really nicely, and saluted, and then went straight into a hug with him, and I just thought, oh my God, Dublin, that was brilliant. And then I suddenly thought, crikey, I hope it is brilliant, because I hadn't actually looked at the screen, so I had absolutely no idea whether it was an okay mark, a crap mark, or a very good mark. Anyway, having come out of my little private hug with Dublin, I looked at the screen and I felt huge relief that it was as good as it felt.
It absolutely was. And what about the sort of the cross country test? So he was in the, I think, individual silver position going forward to or individual bronze going forward to the cross country. Yeah. I think actually
bronze.
Yeah, so he was Ingrid Klimke and Ros Cantor were the two in front of you at that stage. So what was the cross country like for him? Because it was a twisty old track. Would that be something that would have suited him, that you thought, going into the competition?
Well, again, it was another a different test for him. Again, a little bit unproven. He's always been very good cross country. He's never given me any reason to doubt whether he would cope with the twists and the turns. But again, you don't know until you ask. So I had my plan. I knew my plan A, how I was going to ride it, and I knew where my minute markers were, and I just set off and got on with it. And he again is bold horse cross country, and he's got bags of power and scope, and he just felt as if he was just eating up the fences, and his minute markers were, he was comfortably up on those, and he just stayed in that rhythm and galloped all the way home. And he felt great. He was very sharp, very honest, galloped well, and felt super at the end. So it was a lovely feeling, and very proud of him.
And what about the final day? Because you come out in the individual gold medal position. The team are in a team gold medal position. I'm trying to remember, had the team secured the team gold before you jumped? No, because Roz had her problems. So what was going through your mind at that point? What is the focus? Are you thinking of medals, or is it simply just go in, jump a clear round, this is for the team?
Well, it was sort of a very long morning trying to, after the trot up, you're then trying to sort of fill in time, and we'd walk the course a couple of times, 3 times maybe, and then watch the first few jump in the morning. And then you don't want to be watching too many. You just want to sort of pick the riders that you would like to watch, that will do a good job, and then just go and have your quiet time or do whatever you need to keep your nerves at bay and keep yourself in the right frame of mind. So that I did, and then when it was our turn to warm up, I did my initial warm up with him, and he felt great. Jumped a couple of small fences, and he felt as he normally does. He felt lovely. He was very rideable to a fence. He did a good job over a fence. So then I had the long wait really, because I didn't need to keep jumping too much more. He sort of felt as if he was where I wanted to, although I'd only jumped very small fences, and I didn't want to leave the performance in the collecting ring. So I just sort of mooched about on him, and then stood in the corner of the collecting ring, biding my time, waiting, which is often difficult because, as a rider, you want to get on and do and keep practicing and making sure everything's perfect. But he can be, and he is a good jumper, and we just needed to make sure that we'd done enough in the collecting ring, and that we were able to do it correctly in the ring. So I waited. Ingrid was then in the ring, and off I went, jumped a bigger upright and a bigger oxer, and went into the ring, and he was just super. He went in, I halted, saluted, and I just felt as if I pressed go, and just showed him where the fences were. He was lovely to ride. He was fantastic, and obviously I knew I'd jumped clear, but I didn't know whether I was in the side the time. I didn't know whether I'd done enough or anything like that. And it wasn't until everybody was cheering and I could then look back at the screen and I thought, oh, fabulous, we've actually done it. An amazing result for the team to win team gold, and a fairy tale finish for Dublin, my owners, my support team, and myself to be at the top. Which was a lovely rounding and finishing for us.
What does it mean for you and your team, in so much as you've been a stalwart of British teams over the last few years, sort of 12, 15 years? You've had numerous team medals, golds at both the World Equestrian Games and the European Championships. You've been on a podium individually, took the individual bronze with Bolana back in Stragon at the Europeans in 2017. So while everything is, very much you love the teams, what does it mean to individually be the European champion?
It's very exciting. It's very humbling. It's a huge relief as much as anything that, this wild sort of career plan that you have in your mind as a young person that you set out on, and actually looking back thinking, oh my God, how crazy was I to think that actually I could try and do this as a career. And then I suppose when you're standing there with your fantastic teammates in Piggy and Sarah, and standing there on the podium, and it was just lovely to be amongst really good friends standing on the podium, and everybody, all three deserving that place. And it was just very special. And for me, as I say, it was just a relief that, we were able to keep on over the years, keep on improving, and having such lovely horses in Dublin, in Bolana, in Opposition Burrs, and the other horses that, made it onto teams. And, you're just so grateful to them that make all these dreams possible.
And what about for your owners as well? Because James and Joe Lambert and Deirdre Johnston, who own JL Dublin, have been massive supporters of you for some time. And you say yourself, he sort of leapfrogged Bulana this year, who James and Joe also own. So at least their horse did go to the championship this year. What does it mean to them? Because their support has been unwavering.
Oh, it's so exciting. And they live so local to us. And it's just, we're all in it together, part of it. We're just a tight-knit team. They love to have fun. They love being at the top at the big events. And as you say, they're very, very supportive. And it's why we dare do this, do it. And the dream and the hopes and the hope that one day, they may well get a horse to a championship, and if they were able to be on a team and then do well and get a podium finish, well, that really is the icing on the cake. And there was a lot of tears of happiness, and there's been a lot of celebration since, and it's very, very rewarding for them, after the bumpy couple of years, or a couple of years ago, that it all came right, and they got their just reward.
And what about another of the horses in your yard that actually gave you a real golden patch at the end of the year, to be honest, because you were in flying form going into Avanche, Cool Park Sarko, who was a new addition to your string in the last 12 months, looked like a very, very exciting horse for the future, with a very convincing victory at Blenheim. That was quite a performance in all three phases from him there.
He was a fun horse, very, very genuine, lovely looking horse, and he's really developed this year. And to go to Blenheim, he stepped up to do his first 4-star at Berghem. He did a lovely test and a double clear, and he felt very convincing there and really exciting. And then it's sort of trying to give him miles on the clock and educate him without overdoing it, really. We sort of had penciled in with his owners, Jamie and Joe, that it would be lovely to maybe go to Buccalew, but equally, it might be too soon. We'll just take it event by event. And so he did Blair, and then with the sort of the aim of doing the 8 and 9 year olds, and he again was just getting stronger and stronger as the year went on. And he put in a superb performance at Blenheim, and around a very difficult course. I thought the 8 and 9 year old, the short format was a challenging course. There was an awful lot to jump right the way to the end. And I thought, crikey, if he puts in a good fit, if he goes well round here, then I think Buccalew may well be on the cards. And of course he did go well. He won it. And then Buccalew was the next stop. And it was lovely to be part of the Nations Cup team. That was really exciting again for his owners, and for us. And it was Abby Pearson that came to Buccalew with Jeremy, as we call him at home. He put in a great performance. He felt super in the dressage, and I was going to say a double clear, but we had a fence down, didn't we?
But
he felt great cross country. He'd really he'd really matured from his Blenheim run. I felt he'd really matured and developed, and from his Blenheim outing, and he felt fantastic at Buccalew, and a great thing to have under his belt, and a great experience for him, and obviously us.
Jeremy has got to be one of my favourite stable names. That is brilliant. What about the plan for 2022? Because obviously, JL Dublin, it's a World Equestrian Games year. You've got Bulana, who am I right in saying that she's back for next year as well?
Yes. Hopefully she is back in work anyway. And it would be lovely to maybe take Bulana and Dublin maybe to Babington. That would be lovely to sort of aim those two for there. And Jeremy and another horse called Hawkeye, who was also at Blenheim. He was 4th at Blenheim. and another horse that went to Blair to do the 3-star was Canton Well Connected, and it would be really nice to think that maybe they could go to Bramham to do the 4-star long. Obviously Bramham on our doorstep, and all the owners of those 3 horses are also, Yorkshire, so it would be really exciting for potentially those horses to maybe pencil in Bramham as their spring campaign. And then another horse, Arano M, who did his first 4-star at Bicton this year, and he also did the 4-star at Blair, where he was 5th. He may well step up and hopefully go to Le Moulin to do the 5-star. These are all obviously wish lists, and who knows what will actually happen. But it's always nice to have a plan A, but often you have to have a plan Z as well, because being in the horse game as long as we all have been, then we know that we have to have many options.
We do. There's always the plans. That's very, very exciting, though. And I'll be honest, I didn't know you were going to say both Bolana and JL Dublin were going to go to Badminton as plan A, but I'm so excited to hear you say that. And I'm sure listeners, you guys are as well, because that is very, very cool. What about, I like putting people on the spot to find out one to watch in their yard for next year. Perhaps some of the lesser known horses that our listeners might not be as familiar with, that we can all watch out for, that you think a lot of for the future. It might be that it coincides with actually a couple of horses that I'm going to ask you about, in 2 very, very exciting 4-year-olds that you have that keep catching my eye on social media, that have very, very good parentage.
Well, shall we go with the 2 4-year-olds then?
Go with it. I mean, I led you down that path, didn't I, Nick? I was very much like... You
did beautifully, thank you.
Pick a horse, but I'm going to give you 2 to talk about.
Do you know what? When I had this darn fall, suddenly you feel very vulnerable. Your future and your livelihood and is very fragile, let alone your health. And I sort of had various panic attacks thinking, oh my goodness, I could be out of a job. How am I going to, what if? So 2 years ago, we bought some 2-year-olds and thinking of trying to future-proof ourselves. Anyway, the 2-year-olds are now 4-year-olds, and we seem to have got 6 4-year-olds. So we've got a big campaign of 4-year-olds, which are shortly going to be 5-year-olds, and then starting eventing next year. So we've been very busy with them since the eventing season has finished, and it's been really fun and exciting watching them develop over the last 18 months, and I've had a big part to play with them, with starting them off and in the various lockdowns, and then working with them, and it's been really really lovely spending that quality time with them. So I'm so looking forward to them starting next year, and I'm sure it'll be a bumpy road, and sometimes they'll be okay, and sometimes it'll be a disaster, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how they come out in the spring and being part of their future going forward. So I'm really looking forward to all of the 4-year-olds, but as you say, having ridden Beltane Queen and Annie Clover, and now having their 2 young stock with B now, 4 coming 5, it'd be particularly interesting to see how they develop and whether they're any good, basically.
Well, they're certainly bred for the job. Were they embryo babies or were they carried naturally?
Annie Clover's was embryo because she wouldn't carry her own, and Beltane Queen, she was natural. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because Beltane Queens is by Chilly Morning, isn't he?
That's
and
correct.
he is coloured,
yes,
just like his mummy, and absolutely flipping enormous.
Yes, he's 4 years old and he's 18 hands.
I mean, that is huge. But he looks unbelievably talented. I know he went really well in some of the next gen classes at the back end of this year.
Charlie is a very tall horse to stand next to and to try and get on, although he's incredibly well mannered. And when you ride him, he doesn't feel big. He's very compact. He's very, very balanced horse. And he's also very polite. He's brave, but polite. And it isn't until you come to jump off that you forget that you realise how big he is when the ground, then you sort of travel down for another 2 feet before you hit the ground. So that can be a little bit of a jarring moment. But when you're actually working with him, either on the ground or riding him, he doesn't ride anywhere near as big as he looks. And Jack is a much more sensible size at about 16.1.
I love that. I bet you sort of get off and you just keep going and
Yes.
going and going and think, well, we'll hit the ground soon. Look, really, really exciting to see how they come out next year. But in particular, such a very, very cool team of horses at the very, very top of their game. And what a year it has been this year. I have absolutely no doubt that all of our listeners will have been absolutely delighted for you, because you are genuinely one of the nicest people in eventing, and so it is lovely to see you take that individual title, having been such a big part of the teams over the last few years as well. So Nicola, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been a pleasure to have you on this episode of The Zebra Show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Listeners, we hope you've enjoyed it, and a big thank you to Bucas as well for their support of this show. We will be back very soon with more. We have got some very special guests lined up on the future episodes of The Zebra Show, so keep your eyes peeled.
Thank you for listening to the Epa Ratings Eventing podcast.
Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I look forward to having you back with us soon.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more.
Listeners, we'll speak to you again soon.